Welcome everyone. My name is Robin Ryan, coordinator of the Seeds of Partnership, and along with us is Dana Egan, program specialist. And on behalf of the Seeds of Partnership team, we'd like to welcome you to this webinar, Partnerships and New Possibilities with Families, which has a special education focus. This is the second part of a two-part webinar. Today's segment is a practitioner panel conversation. Panelists will share some of their lessons learned partnering with families. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the California Department of Education, CDE, for funding our project to provide statewide resources and professional development opportunities. This webinar series is sponsored by Seeds of Partnership, the CDE Special Education Division, and the Family Engagement Department. Next slide. Just a little bit about Seeds of Partnership. Our project is funded through the Special Education Division and is under the auspices of the Sacramento County Office of Education. This project supports various CDE statewide initiatives and activities in an effort to improve outcomes for students with disabilities, infant through secondary transition. This webinar is being recorded. These recorded presentations will be posted on the Seeds of Partnership website. We encourage you to participate throughout the session using the chat feature. If you have questions, please use the Q&A feature. These buttons are at the bottom of your Zoom window. If we're not able to answer all the questions during the webinar, don't worry. We'll be working with the presenters to ask for responses and email those out. But please complete the survey at the end of the webinar. We will post a link in the chat a little bit later. Now I'd like to welcome back Dr. A.Pleet-Odle. Just a brief intro for her. Amy has been an educator for more than 50 years in multiple roles in education. She's also a parent, author, coach, national presenter, and we're excited to continue this work together. Great to have you with us again, Amy.
Thank you, Robin. I'm excited about being back here for webinar number 2. I'm curious how many of you watched part 1 of the series. Could you put in the chat, yes, if you were able to see webinar 1, whether you saw it live or you saw it in the replay. Either way, we'll make the replay for 1 and 2 available to you. So I'm seeing yes, yes, saw it live, yay. Okay, oh, a lot of yeses. Okay, good. I'm guessing there could be somebody who was not able to see number 1 because we know there were some that just registered in the last couple of days. So I'm going to do a kind of short synopsis of webinar number 1, and then we'll go into the panels. So the intended outcomes for both of the webinars in this series are to explore options to promote family partnerships for students with special education needs, to learn more about the dual capacity building framework for family partnerships and implications of the Andrew F. Supreme Court ruling for local practice. We really hit those 2 goals heavily in the first webinar. And then use the 10 tips for family alliances to determine local opportunities to expand partnerships. In part 1, I focused on the why and the what of building alliances with families of students with disabilities. I'll give you just a quick overview of that here, and then we're going to explore the how with our panel. For those of you who have not seen it yet, in webinar 1, I first shared discouraging data about students' post-school outcomes. Basically, if we don't do something to disrupt our established practices and our current trend continues nationally, we can expect that only 1 in 5 of our students with disabilities, both with IEPs and 504 plans, will be employed in adulthood. 1 in 5 will be employed. Research indicates that most students with disabilities exit school without knowing their disability and without knowing how to advocate for themselves or how to access support services that they may be eligible for in further education and employment. I also reviewed the U.S. Department of Ed's dual capacity building framework that was developed by Karen Mapp at Harvard, which encourages setting the conditions and building the capacities of both families and professionals to have empowering partnerships. The framework applies to all students and all families. We went beyond that here to consider the knowledge, skills, and values that are needed by both professionals and families to build partnership focused on the success of children and youth with disabilities. Then I invited you to consider which of the special education indicators that we do for IDEA, which ones could be improved with strong alliances with families, so that you could zero in on an area that you want to improve in your local area. And then I provided an overview of the Andrew F. versus Douglas County Supreme Court decision of 2017, which established a new standard for writing ambitious IEP goals that are reasonably calculated to ensure the child will make progress, to enable the child to make progress in the general curriculum and ensure meaningful family involvement in IEP meetings, and ensure that their opinions are considered in establishing their child's goals and services. If you missed it, I'll hope you'll take the time to watch the replay because I packed a lot of information into that webinar. Last week, I attended the National Family and Community Engagement Conference. I was struck by a statement made during the closing plenary by Ralph Smith. He said, "Why have we invested so much in school improvement and made such little progress?" He said, "Because for years we thought we could do it without families." The pandemic revealed so many inequities. Teachers got glimpses into the home situation of their students. They witnessed technology and connectivity issues. They rediscovered at a deeper level that connection must come before content. They incorporated wellness moments into their teaching. At the same time, families got glimpses into what teaching and learning look like, how teachers and schools stepped forward in the face of uncertainty and tried so many creative ways to ensure that education would continue. The curtain has been pulled back. I hope we will use this moment to reset how we build collaborative school-home partnerships. In the first webinar, I shared 9 tips for family alliances based on the Andrew F. requirements. I packed my discussion with stories to illustrate and make the tips real. I hope they resonated with you. I also encourage you to start small. Don't try to implement changes in all 10 tips. Instead, go back to your indicator, your IDEA indicator data. Think about your current practices for engaging families within that IEP process, from that initial evaluation all the way through the progress monitoring, and select one problem of practice to focus on for your improvement. Pull together diverse stakeholders so that your initiative will truly address an area for change with powerful buy-in. Today's panel was selected to provide you a range of possibilities to spark your imagination. You'll hear 4 presentations looking at family alliances from quite different perspectives. Here's the whole list. You'll see we have teachers, a parent, a career specialist, a community resource advisor. I will introduce each panel presentation briefly, and then they will share with us each for 10 to 12 minutes. Hopefully, we'll have time at the end for questions. As we go along, please use the chat, as Robin said, for your comments and interaction with each other. You'll see that Robin already put in the chat where you could get the handout from the first workshop. If you have questions that you want to ask the panelists, please post those in the Q&A and we will save them till the end. So first, I would like to introduce the 3rd grade co-teaching team from Ohio who have become friends. I think we met about a year ago. Stephanie Coffman and Ashley Smith. Ladies.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Coffman, as she said, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher. in Central Ohio, and this is my co-teacher, Ashley Smith. She's the intervention specialist in my classroom, although the kids, as we like to see, they actually don't really know the difference between the two of us. So just to kind of give you a general layout of what we do, our classroom is run based on a UDL framework. I think it's important to note too that I do not just co-teach with Stephanie. We have a building, third grade students, we have 4 different classrooms, and depending on what the school year looks like and where numbers fall, I might work out of all 4 classrooms or maybe 2 or 3 or a combination of those. And then I also spend a very small portion of my day in what we call here a resource room setting. So Stephanie and I have been to a lot of professional development in our years of teaching, as most of you probably have been to. The thing that we really appreciate when we go to an event is being able to have resources to take away and use right away. So what we wanted to do today is give you 4 of our most used and what we consider our most effective ways to communicate with parents. So we have a list for you. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So one big way that we utilize talking to parents in our classroom is a text messaging service system, which could be through Remind 101 or Class Dojo. This came in handy quite a bit, especially during the time when we were remote learning. We had already established the system that's set up through this app. And so we used it quite a bit with parents and communicating back and forth from when they were at home, or even when their kiddo was on a Zoom call with one of us and there was a technical issue with their kid, we could shoot a quick text and communicate with parents that way about anything in the school during the school day, send photos of their kiddos working, and just really helped build that relationship between us and the parents and their child. I think two things to note about either Remind 101 or Class Dojo also is this was super helpful this school year. Our school had a policy that parents or anyone that was not working in the building could not enter the building and spend time in the classroom. So like you said, we took pictures and were able to send those home. So that was a way that parents could really feel like a part of the community without actually stepping foot into the room. Mm-hmm. And then the nice part about the text messaging service is that your personal phone number is not linked to the account either. So it comes in through your phone or your device, but your phone number is never shared. So that's really nice. The second thing that we did pre-COVID, and we did post-COVID a little bit differently as well, is an academic celebration share day. So pre-COVID, we were allowed to have people in the building and would have kids working on certain projects throughout the school year. So a lot of times this revolved around writing projects that we would do. Mm-hmm. And kids would have their writing, and the parents or whoever was connected with them would be able to come into the classroom and listen to them share their writing. So that was really neat. We would have snacks because sometimes the kids have little siblings that would come in. So we would do snacks and drinks, and parents could come in and listen to the writing that we've been working on, and we would be able to outline the things that we've really been digging deep into with the standards to let them see what the kids have been learning. The way that we altered this during our post-COVID life now, we use another system called Loom, which is basically a screen recording system. So the kiddos would work on the same writing project that we had done in years previous, but instead of parents being able to come in, we allowed the kids to be able to Loom their video. So they would sit much like what we're doing now, and their PowerPoint would be on the screen, and then their little picture would be there of them reading their story. And then we actually were able to share this Loom through one of the text messaging services, and it would go directly to the parents. They could click on it and watch it. Because it would create a URL code that then was specific to that child's presentation. So then we were able to send it, like she said, to their parents and
we had a lot of positive feedback from all of our families from that, because they couldn't, like she said, come into the school. So it was great for us to be able to kind of export it out to them.
It was also nice too, because recording their voice is a standard here that we need to cover. So it was nice that it had dual purposes as well.
Yeah.
We're ready for the next slide, please.
Yes. So another way that we try to establish communication with our parents is through data setting. Specifically, we thought we would share what we do in math. You can see here on the slide where it says Chapter 11 goal pretest score. And this is actually a sheet that's given to our students for each math chapter. And after they take a pretest, I have them document their score, and then they talk about how they're going to work toward increasing that and set a goal for themselves and how they're going to meet that goal. And then halfway through the chapter, they take a little mid-chapter check, and then they'll check on how their rating is going, how their score is falling into place based on what they had set it to be. And then by the end, they take their final test, which gives them their post-test score. And they have to reflect on whether or not they've met that goal and what they want to keep working on. So how we kind of link that to parents then is that they receive the paper that's kind of down at the bottom left corner. It talks about overall, it's like a letter that goes home, and the parents get to see their child's pre-test score, also the post-test score, and it allows them to then tell us if they have any like questions or concerns. They jot it all down on that, and then we're able to then communicate back and forth with them, just so that they can also see how their child is progressing, and then involving them within the conversation and development as well. We've had a lot of positive things on here. We've had a lot of parents list concerns that they have for their child within that chapter, or within just a general standard that they would like to see their child continue to develop in. So it's been a really great way to have a note that's been taken from the parent, and it's right there on our desk so that we can like look through it and reteach as necessary those skills, and then update the parents through Remind or, a phone call.
I think a pro tip on that form that we learned midway through, maybe one test into the school year that we trialed this, was there definitely needs to be another sheet that goes home with the first chapter of this saying your pre-test score, if it's 3%, is okay.
Yes.
That score tends to
scare them a little
invoke
bit.
some panic, I think.
Yes.
But I think parents also do come to appreciate the pre-test score, and then obviously to see the growth by the end of what the post-test score is.
Yeah.
So when Amy had originally asked us to do this panel, we had a little bit of difficulty coming up with what we would maybe do specifically or only for students with disabilities. Like we said before, we run a classroom that's based off of universal design for learning, which allows any kiddo to participate in the classroom. And we work really hard on building terms like expert learning so that all students can come in and be able to advocate for what they need to make learning happen for them. So everything that's on this screen, we do with all students, and build partnerships with all families. Obviously, you're going to have some families that maybe would want more communication than others, but we do offer it to all families. The final option that we wanted to give you today is just family surveys. So at the beginning of the school year, we do a survey. Stephanie sends it out to general education, to all families, possibly through one of the text messaging systems or maybe through email, where families can get the opportunity to tell us about their student and maybe the worries that they have coming into third grade. Like we said, we work in Ohio. Ohio has a third grade reading guarantee. That part alone, often we have a lot of questions around what that looks like. So that survey really helps us understand the kiddos when they come into the classroom, and then it also creates that parent voice. And then the final thing that we do is connected to the QR code at the bottom. So this one would be specifically for students with disabilities, students that have an IEP. This survey specifically targets the future planning portion of the IEP. So the questions that are on this form are something that I would send out to parents, maybe at parent-teacher conference time, or to give them some time to fill it out, because it has questions that you're not necessarily going to answer in one evening. Looking at what are you considering? What would you like your child to be doing in 5 years or 10 years? Different questions like that. We give it out either in paper form. We also created the QR code at the bottom that if you want to scan it and use it and adapt it to your liking, you can. But this is a way for us to gather an understanding of where parents, where they feel their child's success is, what their concerns are, and it really just helps build that future planning so that we have an understanding of where they would like to see their student within the next school year and areas to focus on.
I also dropped the link in the chat in case you'd like to click on it there as well.
Just as a side note too, if it comes up and asks you to ask for access, feel free. We tried to get that to go away, but we couldn't figure it out. So
yeah, so if you want access, just request. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ashley and Stephanie. Well, I asked you to give a few tips, but you're all organized in 4 different types and options within each of those. So thank you so much. And so my imagination wheels are turning here, like, see, what could we do? How could we take those ideas and many others and adapt them for families of kids with disabilities? Okay, we are going to move to the next panel. And this is Cara Phillips. And I've known Cara for maybe 2 years through some work that I've been doing in Frederick County, where Cara is serving as the Family Support Services person. So Cara, I'm going to leave it for you to present.
Absolutely. And I need the host to unlock my video if you want to see me. Otherwise, I can just talk.
The host has to unlock your video. Okay.
That's what it's telling me. Here we go.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So I wanted to jump in. So yes, I am the Family Support Coordinator in Frederick County, Maryland for our public school system. But I wanted to take a little time today to really kind of go through some information in ways that I can provide some family perspective. Since this is the conference about, partnerships and new possibilities with families, I've had a pretty long journey myself. So as you can see here, these are my 2 children, and they have very different special education needs. And between the 2 of them, we cover collectively 5 of the 14 disability codes. So it's been a journey for me. And also because life happens, and you can click the button, just a space bar, Amy, there is a very high chance that one of them will come in tonight and you will see them because my sitter did not come through. And so life happens. But I went ahead and wrote myself a goal that I think you all may or not appreciate, or you can tear it apart. However, by next year, when presenting to a group via webinar, Cara will make plans and utilize her toolbox of strategies and resources to ensure she will be uninterrupted during a presentation 4 out of 5 times. So next slide. That's just a heads up. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I wanted to kind of just walk you guys through my journey in special education, kind of my journey as a parent, my journey as I transitioned into this role as a supporter of other families, and then how I kind of moved a step further than that and took on more of a coaching role, which allows me to help families help themselves. So if we go to the next slide. So this is me as a parent, at least in the early stages. I was overwhelmed. I was unprepared. I was completely confused. Prior to having children, I worked in the corporate world for 15, 20 years. I felt very confident in myself. And then all of a sudden I had a 3-year-old who was going into school. And this was really my first exposure to special education. And I will say I was clueless. I had no idea what anyone was talking about. I blindly let everyone lead me and him down paths. Luckily, I had incredible teams that truly cared for my son and did amazing things, but I really didn't know what I didn't know. I would attend IEP meetings. I would nod politely. I was afraid to ask questions because I didn't want to feel that I was the only in the room that didn't understand. And so I just kind of nodded and signed, meeting after meeting. However, about 4 years into that journey, I had an incredible teacher of my son's who kind of took me in and enlightened me to what I called like the secret world of special education. She helped walk me through the process. She made me understand ways that I might need to word things to ensure that everyone was on the same team. She took the time during meetings to stop the teams and explain in more depth what everyone was talking about. Because though I had a high-powered career in the corporate world, I had no idea what anyone was talking about in the education world. So after a few years, we want to go to the next slide, I decided at that point I had my second child who was in kindergarten at that time. And so I then had a second and a 6th grader. So fast forward about 9 years out, and I decided to leave my corporate career and spend some more time at home. In doing that, I found out that I kind of naturally was that person that other families were starting to come to for advice. And an opportunity arose through my own school system where the person who had my position before me had just retired. So luckily, I kind of jumped in and I went in like head first. I spent the first 6 to 9 months really just like learning about special education law, learning about what my school system did in all different ways, and really kind of dove in. So one of the things that I kind of took as like my first step in that role of connecting with families, in addition to just providing resources and, bringing in speakers for workshops, I attended hundreds of IEP meetings. I went in, I was that extra person at the table. This is one of my favorite quotes on the screen, or memes, I guess, where it always felt like there was one side of the table against the other, at least from a parent perspective. And then, it's like the family over there saying, I'm not sure why Mr. Barth always feels compelled to bring an advocate to the IEP meeting. So I wanted to be someone that families could utilize that was not necessarily an advocate in the connotation that a lot of us think about when we think about education advocates, more of just someone to sit on their side of the table and help them understand what was going on. So I spent, like I said, hundreds of IEP meetings where I was just learning and learning more about what we could do and how I could help families. And one family at a time, I felt like I was making some small impact. So if we get to the next slide. However, what I learned during all of that is I felt like I was definitely helping forge relationships between schools and families. I was helping them learn how to collaborate. I was helping them learn to have more conversations around the tables. But what I wasn't doing was teaching them to help themselves. So after the first 18 months or so, I really kind of took a step back. I attended less meetings and I did more of one-on-one or group coaching sessions. And this has really kind of been how my approach has changed in the last, 3 years, where I teach them how to read their IEPs. I teach them how to read their assessments. And sometimes me teaching them is still me just writing down questions for them to ask when they go back to their teams. I don't expect them to fully understand psychological evaluations or educational evaluations. And candidly, neither do I, but I do know what I don't understand and I'm not afraid to ask. And I'm trying to empower my families to not be afraid to ask either. So in that, and something that I do like to do is I bring in speakers and I host workshops. And like Amy had said, I had actually partnered, she came to my county to help us with an inclusion opportunity for some of our high schoolers. And I knew when I met her that we were going to do many more things together, that whether she wanted to or not. So from a personal perspective and a professional perspective, I was in her world now, and she couldn't get rid of me. So if we go to the next slide, the workshop, I reached out and I was like, I want you to be a speaker, and I have no idea what I want you to do yet, but I want to talk to you. So ultimately what we ended up deciding is it kind of went back to all of that stuff that I had learned over the years and where a lot of her expertise was. And we designed a workshop that was all around what questions to ask when you're at the IEP table. And you can't see all of these, I think, on the slide, but I'm pretty sure we can provide these. I'm just going to say that we can. I've provided to my families. And these are just really simple questions that families can use to feel empowered to ask when they're at the IEP table, feeling like just overwhelmed or confused or not sure what they're allowed to use. So I'm going to just kind of briefly touch on a couple of them, and then we'll drop some resources for you all. But again, like the first question was like, what's the purpose of this IEP? Why am I even here? What are my child's unique strengths and needs? What are possible transition outcomes, or what is our short or long-term goals? I mean, these were things that just get conversations moving. Also, a few other things that were helpful were like, what kinds of adjustments or adaptations because of this disability might they need? How can they be more included in the general education setting if they had those? Will my child need accommodations? And honestly, what are accommodations, and helping understand the differences on what these are? And then any kind of modifications and understanding that. And then the last part of our series was really about like, how do we know if the IEP is working? Like, how do we truly understand how to track goals, how to recognize if the strategy is working or if the goal is correct? And it just was a really engaging workshop that Amy helped lead, and we just kind of collaborated on together so that we had these aha moments of how do we help families feel like they can ask the right questions so then they feel empowered to be a better part of the team. Okay, and so we'll drop those into you. And so this was something that I had done years ago when I first kind of jumped into my support role. I was asked to join a panel similar to this. I think the audience at the time was principals and assistant principals. But these were things we wish families knew about us or things we wish the schools knew about us as families. So the first thing, if you can click the button, is one, we're really tired. This was the one that I had said out loud. And this, to put in perspective, I think that a lot of times, I know that a lot of teachers thought that I was just scattered. They knew I was like, thought I was scattered. I didn't turn paperwork in. I was always having to be hunted down. But here's a piece of reality. I have not personally slept through the night since 2006, December 2006. That's the last time I slept through the night. Do the math. So we're tired. Sometimes we're just tired and we get overwhelmed, but we do care, and we are trying to be engaged in the best way we can. The next one is, yes, we're the expert on our child, but only sort of. And what I mean by that is, I think it's come up to me a few times that I occasionally I felt like the team would turn to me and they would be like, oh, well, you're the expert. And I would be overwhelmed. I didn't know what to say. So now I say things like, yes, I know what makes them happy. I know when they're angry. I know when they're fooling me into trying not to work. But I'm not an expert in special education. I'm not an expert in educational strategy or interventions and all of those things. And I need your help. We need your help as educators to help us learn some of that so that we can reinforce it at home or truly understand what it is you're doing to help our children. The next one is we don't speak special education. I know it's not a real language, but it feels like a language to us as families. I don't know what letter, what I'm trying to say, I don't know what, different levels are for grade level academics. I don't understand. I didn't know what interventions meant. I didn't know what a lot of things meant. So if you can just take a pause and be like that first teacher that brought me in, she helped me translate, and she's now helped empower me to help other families do all of those types of translations. And I think the last thing I have on here is just collaboration is key. Meetings go so much better when there is conversation and collaboration. As I tell a lot of my families, like, we are all on the same team. Sometimes we don't feel like it because we feel unempowered, but the more we learn together and the more questions we can ask, and the more we can ask everyone at the table, the special educator, the general educator, the family, and anyone else that might be there that can talk about this child, the more we're going to be successful, and most of the time we're in this together for at least, 13 years. I'd rather be sitting around the table with a lot of people that I am friends with, and that we can work forward to help what everyone wants to do, which is to help the kids. So thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Giving us a glimpse of what it looks like behind the scenes for being a parent, and then what the kinds of work that you've been doing helping families. So it's been an honor to work with you. I'm going to move right along to our third presenter, and that is Derek Alexander, who I guess maybe the first ones I knew for 1 year, and the second for 2 years. I think, Derek, I've known you for 3 years. Anyway, Derek is a business consultant with the Delaware Division for the Visually Impaired in the state of Delaware. Also, an individual who has a visual impairment. So, Derek, if you can turn your camera on and your microphone on, we are looking forward to hearing how you work with students and their families. We might need a host to, no.
Hello, I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm about to turn my camera on.
We just need your camera on. Yes, okay.
Okay, there I am. Okay, thank you so much, Amy. I appreciate being here today. So one of the things that I wanted to do first, Amy mentioned that I'm a business consultant for the Delaware Division for the Visually Impaired. Well, what does that mean? First, I want to talk a little bit about my agency, what my agency does, my team, my role with my team, the community resources that we use, and then lastly, and most importantly, families and how we engage with them. So just to start, as Amy said, I work for the Delaware Division for the Visually Impaired. The Delaware Division for the Visually Impaired has been open since 1909. It is one of the oldest agencies that deal with health and human services in the state of Delaware, and it is the oldest in my department, which is the Department of Health and Social Services. Now, within that department, we have different programs, and those programs help our students in many different ways. Our education department, or our teachers for the visually impaired, they work with our students, and they work with them year-round. They work with students from birth to around the age of 18. And in some cases, of course, they work with those in college, but they provide educational and recreational support for our students. For the recreational portion, they have special events that they work with our students, like I said, year round. And in order to do that, they have to engage with our families year round. What we found is that you can't just ask a parent, a month ahead of time, oh, do you mind dropping your child off for this particular event, and then expecting them to be able to engage. We basically make sure that we work with the students the whole time to make sure that, or the students and their families to make sure that they know what's going on the whole time. And as the education department works with the families, they introduce them to the entire team. That way they're not, no pun intended, blindsided later on in life when it comes to actually working with the rest of us. So we have an independent living services department. Independent living services helps our students at home. And when they're college bound, they help them to acclimate in the college world, in their environment. And then our orientation and mobility department help them to navigate the world and points beyond. In that time period, they also have support services from other departments, such as our training center, who provides assistive technology. And then there's my department, the vocational rehabilitation department that deals with jobs. And so within the department, we have a counselor. The vocational rehabilitation counselor is the person that helps to guide and steer the resources for the individuals that we work with. So our students receive a counselor, and that counselor helps them with whatever training they might need. They help them with whatever assistive technology they might need, community resources that they need for when they're going to school and then to college. They attend IEP meetings, and they work with our parents and our families to help them to navigate through the world of all the acronyms that we throw at them during the time period that we throw at them, because there are a lot of those. What is an IEP? What's an IPE? What's a 504? So those are some of the things that we basically help them to navigate through. Now, in my role as a business consultant, I specialize in employment and entrepreneurial training. So what I end up doing with our students is I help them with self-advocacy. I help them with networking skills to build their resumes. I help them to understand the importance of charitable giving and giving back to the community. I help them with financial literacy. And I also help them, one, from college age, also then into the workforce by helping them to understand how to look for jobs. Now, during that process, as I mentioned, we work with community resources as well. So we bring in a lot of providers to work with our students and our families to help them to understand this process. In the meantime, we also work with a lot of business owners and a lot of business partners to teach them how to work with students who are visually impaired, how to get them prepared to work for them. We do worksite assessments and things like that to help to prepare their site for the individual that's coming. Now, as I mentioned, this team approach is something that we've done at the Delaware Division for the Visually Impaired for a very long time. And the most important member of our team are our families. So like I said, we have recreational events that we arrange and coordinate throughout the year. And in order for those to be successful, we need the engagement of the families. For the educational purposes in those events, we need the cooperation, understanding, and support of the families. Now, if we just ask our families, like I said, to work with us one time out of the year, then the likelihood of their participating is not going to be very high. One of the things that happened throughout the course of the pandemic, because unfortunately, we must speak about that, was that, we were not able to, during that time period, physically see our students. But that also provided a very unique opportunity for us, as many parents were working from home with their students, who were trying to engage in classroom activities and helping their students to do their homework and things like that. We were able to then provide Zoom and virtual classes and virtual workshops to which we were able to invite the parents. Now, by engaging the parents and inviting the parents, that helped them to see what we were doing in terms of educating their students and the types of workshops that we had. One in particular that I facilitate is called The Game of Real Life. And that's a financial literacy course where I teach students about how to navigate the world in terms of getting ready for college life and also for either employment or entrepreneurship. And what we found was that because the parents were home and some of the siblings were home, they were able to then participate in the events. So that was a wonderful blessing in disguise, where out of the pandemic and all of the horrible things that came from it, we were able to engage our parents even more and our families, because as I mentioned, it is a whole approach. We work with our students, and I like to say that when we're working with our students, it's almost like a car analogy. So the student is driving, basically, and we're the navigation system. The parents are the wheels that help it along. The teachers are like the steering mechanisms that help them to get to where they need to go. And we're the GPS. You can turn it off or on anytime that you want to, but that fuel, we need the families to help to fuel that student's desire and help them to get to where they're going. So we help them, or I help them, and as part of the team, to dream big. I help to work with the parents to help the students to, like they say, shoot for the stars and maybe you'll land on the moon. I may not get you your dream, but I can definitely get you dream adjacent. So I'll leave you with a couple of things that we were able to do with our parents to help them to stay engaged throughout that year-long journey and thereabouts. So one, robocalls. We realize that parents are very busy, and so trying to call them throughout the day is not a very easy task. So setting up a robocall to let them know when the events are going to take place, scheduling that for an evening call helps to make sure that we can get in touch with more of our parents. Text. A lot of people are texting nowadays as opposed to looking at their email. So when you're able to text the parent and send them a quick message, it's a lot easier because a lot of times they're working and they can't answer a phone, but they can look at a text and see the text and know to now engage, with you that way, so that they know that the student's event is coming up, and that makes it a lot easier. After our events, we do surveys. So we stay in touch with our parents that way to ask them how they felt that the event was handled and how much information they got from it, not just our student, because again, we want this to be a whole family partnership, a team approach. And then we also work on social media. Social media is very important these days because a lot of people work on social media. So by inviting them to stay on our page, families are able to be engaged. They see what's happening. We also post information with their permission, of course, about the students and what's happening with them. And that helps to keep the families engaged and see what's happening with those students during the time period that they work with us. And we like to say that we basically don't want you to just drop your kids off. We want you to be part of their experience. And now parents, of course, know their students usually more than we do. So we know that, again, as Cara mentioned, they don't know everything about their student, but there are a lot of things that they can tell us about the student that can help us to assist them to dream big. So we mainly make sure that we stay in touch with those parents to make sure that we're getting as much information about our students, their children, so that we can help them to find a proper and appropriate income as far as the outcome is concerned of their education, their employment, or their entrepreneurial endeavors. So those are just some things that I wanted to share in terms of how we engage our families to make sure that they know that they are the MVPs of our team. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Dream big as part of the whole team. Great. Okay, so we have one more panelist here to talk with you. I'm inviting Casandra Guerrero. Now, I said that there was one panelist I knew for a year, a pair, and one I knew for 2 years, one I knew for 3 years. Cassandra and I have just met, so starting on the other end. But Cassandra brings in a community organization, and I think this is will get your mind thinking about other possibilities for engaging families. So Cassandra.
Awesome, thank you. I'm excited to be here. So I'm going to be talking to you about peer-based instruction and intervention, and specifically from the lens of Circle of Friends, which is a program that I use to engage peer-based instruction, but there's many others out there. So next slide. So just a little bit about me. My background is that I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I've been in a comprehensive high school setting for about 14 years. The last 4 of which I've been a program specialist, so supporting the speech and language program, but also a lot of our other programming for special education. I've been running my Circle of Friends chapter for about 11 years. I piloted with 30 students, and I currently, well, pre-COVID, had about 285 students participating. So I have a lot of experience with that and with building inclusive opportunities on school campuses for children. And then also, I've been a program facilitator for Circle of Friends for about the past 8 years. And what that means is that I help train other districts in how to implement the program. Circle of Friends is a small nonprofit. And so there's a model in how to train districts, and I've been part of that team. And then also I'm part of the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network, or CAPTAIN. And I've been a member of that for about 6 years. And I'm putting the website for CAPTAIN in the chat. It has a lot of great resources and learning modules for parents. And the research in CAPTAIN focuses specifically around autism, but there are, in my experience, a lot of those best practices apply kind of across the board. So next slide. So a little bit about that. Part, I think, of building trust with families is showing that you're using methodology that's evidence-based, and it's also part of the law and what we're expected to do as educators, right? So peer-based instruction and intervention is actually an evidence-based practice, and it has been established for many years, but the most recent research was updated in 2020 by the National Clearinghouse on Autism Evidence and Practice. And I know this chart is really small, but it's downloadable from the Captain website under the resources as well. So, and it has another sheet with definitions of all the different evidence-based practices, but it shows domains and age ranges in which these different practices are shown to be effective through research. Next slide. So here's just the definition of what a peer-based instruction and intervention is from the Captain website again. And basically peers promote social interactions and other learning goals. And there's adults that provide support to those peers. And it supports, the research shows that it supports areas including academic, communication, joint attention, and social domains, kind of across age ranges, depending on the area you're looking at. And so there's several different ways to do this. Like I said, there's free learning modules that you can do in all of these different areas. And for peer-based instruction and intervention, there's a couple examples. One of them is a more structured in the classroom type of model. And at our high school, we have what's called a peer teaching period. And so general education peers can sign up to support in our life skills classes. And it's kind of like a TA period for them. And they come in and help support. We actually have 2 or 3 teachers currently in our life skills program who were peers and were in Circle of Friends when they were in high school. And they came back to us as special education teachers. And so this is an example of an assignment that students had during distance learning and that helped connect with students. And I'm going to have you play the video. I'm going to have you pause it halfway through just so we can kind of get a little taste. I don't think the sound is shared. I'm not hearing sound from the video. If you just share screen and click that sound button.
I'm gonna fold it hot dog style and then hamburger style. Boop, boop, boop. We're gonna fold it hot dog style again, then hamburger style, and then another hamburger fold. And we're gonna put it back and give it a little pat. Next up, we will be organizing shoes. Here's me putting shoes
Okay,
away.
you can pause it there.
Boop, boop. Next is putting.
So it's just a little example that was posted in the Google Classroom for our life skills students. And it's just a nice little way that peers were still able to connect with their friends through the school closures. And also parents, of course, were seeing this and connecting that their students had those peer friends as they were seeing their students do their distance learning at home. Next slide. So the other model that I'm going to be mainly talking about is the school club model of inclusion. And there's lots of ways you can do this. Again, I have done it for the past 11 years through Circle of Friends. I was trained by the founder of the program. And it's really been very effective in creating a culture of inclusion on our campus and also connecting with families. So besides, doing an evidence-based practice and that piece of it, which is important, it's also really important to see each family and child as individuals and kind of connecting through our humanity. And as parents, I know I have 2 children as well. My daughter has ADHD, and we just want our children to be happy, have friends, and have opportunities. And I've seen this model really support that for our students. So a club model also provides opportunities for parent volunteers and collaboration. So like in a high school setting where I am, they help with their homecoming floats sometimes. I had a parent angel, I called her for many years, who was my main point of contact and would help me get things for different events we were doing. She got a popcorn machine for a new movie night we did and different things like that, and connected with other parents. And then during distance learning, also staying virtually connected helped create those relationships and a stable routine that supported students as they transitioned back to from remote to hybrid learning. And also, I've just found that through my 11 years running Circle of Friends, that my relationships and partnerships with families are really enriched by providing social support and inclusive opportunities for their students. Because they see that, we care in a different way and that we're really going outside the box. So some of the components of Circle of Friends are that students are set up with multiple days a week of groups, and they have multiple friendships. The peer friends are trained in a workshop that we do, and then we do this in the natural environment at lunch. And also our club participates in all the extracurricular and school-wide activities. Like I've mentioned, homecoming. We do what's called Baylor lunchtime, and that's where clubs would sell food to other students and things like that. So we participate in all of those things that help our students become involved and become a part of the campus. So just as an example, so if my student Andrew might have Monday officer meetings, if he's a friend director, and we do have positions on our officer board for students with and without disabilities. Tuesday and Wednesday, he might have groups with different friends that he meets with. Thursday might be a free day, and then Friday might be our football Friday. We did what we called Football Friday, where I had a couple of football players who really were interested in becoming involved. And so we created this day, and it's game day. So they're wearing their jerseys, and on a high school campus, that's really kind of a status symbol, and really sets the precedent for the other students on the campus to see them interacting and hanging out with our students in our club. So that's just kind of an example of what the week might look like. When we transitioned to virtual, we met one day a week on Zoom. And so we would rotate activities. We might do some type of Zoom game. My co-advisor would find things on Teachers Pay Teachers, bingo, things like that. Then we would do a unified sports workout. We're affiliated with Special Olympics as well. And then we might do a simple craft. We made like a Mother's Day card. When it was around Mother's Day, we made Valentine's cards, things like that. And then we might have a Zoom dance party where we spotlight different people's dance moves or do a group dance, and we can see everybody's squares and everybody rocking out to the music together. And that kept everybody connected. And it was the same day, same time all year. And it was just a nice, consistent connection that all of the kids could come to if they wanted. Next slide. Okay, so this is my student, Andrew. And again, we're not going to see the whole video. I'll let you know when to stop. But this is Andrew when we first started Circle of Friends many years ago.
Do you like Circle of Friends?
Yes.
Yes.
Why?
Because you get to interact with new people and make new friends.
What do you think, Andrew?
Yep.
Do you like your friends?
Yes.
Who are these girls?
Casandra, Amy.
Who are they? They're my...
Mine.
Are they your friends?
Yes.
Do you enjoy hanging out with them?
Yes.
Tell me something. You can pause it there. They are very. So that just gives you a little taste. So if you can see, so putting my speech hat on, I'm seeing a lot of echolalic language, which means just repeating things that I'm saying, needing a lot of scaffolding, doing a lot of pointing and gesturing, and having kind of, he really wants to engage socially. He likes his friends, he has fun, but he has a hard time really maintaining that conversation. And so this is about 4 years later, and Andrew's the one in the glasses, and I want you to notice if you see any differences in his communication here. Can you guys tell me about Circle of Friends?
I like the boys.
Yeah.
With Jacob, Dawson, Andrew, and me.
What do you guys do together?
I guess I'm going to Ms. Jones' class in new camps.
A new campus?
Go to new campus, go to Miss Jones' room. We hang out, huh, Andrew?
Yeah.
Do you eat M&M's there?
Oh, there's no more M&M's.
She got to get more M&M's along.
Okay, you can pause it there. About your friends. What do you like about them?
We like.
So if you notice there's more, he seems more comfortable, more happy. His spontaneous language has really improved. This group of boys in particular, they went to each other's birthday parties. The boys took him to football games, and just really, really sweet relationships there. So, and that's, after 4 years, multiple groups a week, just being exposed and supported by peers and having that inclusive opportunity. And I've had many families that have come to me and said, my student's being recognized in the store and has friends that are coming to say hi to them. My student is not, secluding themselves in their room after school. They're coming and hanging out with the family and wanting to engage with us. And it's really, I think, this exposure and this it affects, their whole life really and their whole communication. So I've seen just really positive outcomes for students and families, and it's just been really fun to see the progression that all my students really make. So next slide.
Can you guys tell me about Circle of Friends? Can you guys tell me about Circle of Friends?
My loud voice right by the microphone. Okay, and so the other thing I just kind of wanted to mention is it really does create a culture of inclusion. So once we see our students being included at lunchtime with their peers and other peers are seeing that, it really has affected all the way from administration, teachers, cafeteria workers, maintenance, bus drivers, everybody on the campus is on the same page with this. I've seen our life skills program moved from the dingy portables on the outskirts of the campus to our classrooms are right in the middle of main campus now, where everybody eats lunch and they have access, much more access to their peers. We do ability awareness presentations that students present, students with and without disabilities, and students who use AAC, students who have limited verbal language, they have support of their peers. They present to all of our freshman classes because that lays a foundation of support and understanding for everybody. We have unified sports now, which initially was initiated by a student who came to me with a 3-page proposal she had written out to start a soccer team. She'd already contacted everybody on the Special Olympics website that she could find and got us connected with Special Olympics. We had one of our paraprofessionals start a cheer team for our students that integrates with our freshman cheer team at rallies and football games and basketball games. We have our own ASB royalty category for, homecoming queens and stuff like that. Our FFA program has started a Baylor Buckaroo Rodeo, which is kind of an adapted rodeo for our students. We had in 2019 an inclusion night at one of our football games where the whole game was dedicated towards inclusion, and our students got to do the coin toss and run onto the field with the players and all kinds of other fun stuff. And then for years, we've done an inclusion week and a unified prom that ASB helps us put on. An inclusion week, we have challenges every day for people to do, and prom is attended equally by general education and special education students, and it's kind of a more sensory friendly prom. Parents are encouraged to come to that as well, and they're able to see their students dancing and having fun with their friends. And it's always a really magical night. We've done it virtually these past 2 years because we usually do it around April, so it was right after the pandemic hit last year. We still encourage students to get dressed up, and we just all get on Zoom and play some music and dance and spotlight fun dance moves. We had our school mascot show up and spotlighted him for a little while. So it's a lot of fun. Next slide. So I just have a couple examples of some of the things I've talked about. So this is our freshman cheer that's integrated, our football inclusion night where my student was going out to do the coin toss. We have our royalty with a couple of our students there for the homecoming dance. Next slide. I just wanted to give you this other resource. Special Olympics Northern California has a guidebook that they created where they have a virtual season mapped out for you. They have links to all the video workouts. They have suggested workouts for 2 days a week and then a virtual competition. And we posted this in our Google Classroom and also did live workouts during Circle of Friends time with peer-led workouts from some of these seasons. And we did a soccer season and a basketball season and a track season this year. We also did what we call gifted games. It's our version of Special Olympics that was around before Special Olympics was officially affiliated with us. We've been doing it for about 15 years, and we usually invite our whole county from the Early Childhood Education Center all the way up to our adult day programs and our neighboring county. This year we did it virtually, and we provided slides that had workout links for each day of the week that the teacher could do with their classes, and then a webinar on the Friday of that week where we did a live workout with our officers and a little awards ceremony, and we had about 251 athletes registered. So that was a lot of fun. Just some examples of the inclusion week I talked about. So this was posted on our school social media, and I also use Remind like some of the other presenters, and so I send that out to the parents and also all of the members of the club. And so we have challenges for each day of the week, a color to wear, and things like that. And then we post these things every day for people to remember what to do. And then again, Unified Prom, I kind of went through this already, but this was our theme for this week, or sorry, for this year. And again, people dressed up. And it just creates really good connections and inclusive opportunities for students. And then this year, a new thing we did was a beneficiary drive. We had a family who, the mom is a single mom and her son has some pretty exceptional medical needs, and she needed to care for him around the clock and she couldn't work. So one of my Circle of Friends officers, my president, actually wanted to nominate him for a beneficiary drive, which is something the ASB typically does for students that are in need. And so we held fundraisers throughout the semester and we raised over $5,000 for the family. And so kind of the bottom line here is that doing what's best for kids and giving them inclusive educational and social opportunities builds trust with our families, because they know that you're going to do whatever you can to make their child's life bigger, is what we like to call it, because they see it in action. They see you doing it and they know that you're committed to making that happen. And that's all I have. I think you're muted, Amy.
Okay, there, thank you. There you have 4 different views of ways that you can engage families, everything from what classroom teachers might be doing to what a family engagement specialist might be doing to bring families in, to a career specialist who may be helping families along with their kids, of course, and then a community provider that builds those social connections. So this would be a great time for you to post. We have a few minutes for questions. And so I'll look and see. Okay, so we have, let me ask this question to whoever in the panel, and you're welcome to turn your cameras on, whoever in the panel wants to speak to answer this. The dual capacity building framework lists 4 C's for building capacity. One of them is C, which stands for cognition. And Karen Mapp described that as shifts in beliefs and values. So whoever wants to answer this, what do you think are the biggest shifts in beliefs and values that are going to be needed if we want to build strong alliances with families? What shifts from the old traditional school where parents were just come if we need you, come to the PTA meeting, to really building partnerships? What shifts in beliefs and values are needed? So whoever wants to unmute, I see Casandra, you're ready.
I can speak a little to my experience with that. So what I found with connecting with families in the way that I do is that, like I said, really seeing their child as if they were your child, and creating a program where they see that you value their child and that you want the same things that they want. A lot of families come to us that have trauma really from their experiences in education, from things that they felt like the teams didn't understand about their children. And so sometimes it takes time, but we're just consistent. We do what we say we're going to do. And we have a program that creates opportunities for them to be valued and be a part of our community and not separate from the school community. And really all means all is kind of our motto. All students are included.
I hear that as the way Circle of Friends approaches it, but I suspect that's how you approached working with families as a speech therapist. And I suspect that any of our presenters who are, after we've heard them today, would say that's how they approach families, to respect and to listen and to really care about where that family is. Okay, let me look for one more question. Okay, here's one. I often hear from professionals that they're frustrated that the same parents, the same family members show up all the time. The same ones attend IEP meetings or come to back to school events or whatever. And it's easy to make judgments about those who don't attend, who don't come to the IEP meetings or don't show up to parent conferences. What advice would you give to those who want to engage those hard to reach families? And again, I'm going to open it up to anybody. I can see Cassandra's getting her finger on the unmute. But if anybody else, Ashley and Stephanie, I don't know if you would like to say anything, or Cara or Derek, give you all a chance to unmute and turn on your camera. Okay, Ashley and
Amy.
Stephanie, or Cara, both. Okay, you were first. Ashley and Stephanie, what would you like to say about how do we reach those hard to reach families?
I think one thing we do that seems simplistic in nature, but going back to what we shared about actually taking pictures in the classroom and sharing with parents, sometimes if they're a parent that maybe we don't hear from as often as others, I think it might show that we are super invested in your kid. And I don't know, but when people send me pictures of my own kids, it's hard for me not to reply to that. Oh, how cute are they? I'm so glad you did that today. So I think just that personal touch of things is helpful sometimes too. And then that gives you something to stem off of. And maybe just that reply back of, oh, it's great to hear from you. We love having your kid in class. But the personal touch, I think, seems to be helpful.
Okay. Cara, you would like to add something to that?
Yeah, I think so. And no, I love that, by the way. And you're right. It always is helpful to have kind of that connection. And I don't say it's just me, but I do think that if you have the ability to have a role or someone in your school that is more of like a liaison or a connection at a different type of level, what I've found from a lot of the families that I've worked with over the years, and again, I probably see some of the repeaters all the time too that are just super engaged. But when I do reach some, and you think about if it's the IEP team specifically, I mean, I feel like there's a couple kinds of parents out there. We're the same kind of kids we were when we were in high school. We, going into that back room in the principal's office, either one, they've never stepped foot there in their life, so they're terrified about what might be behind those doors, or they were back there all the time, so they still don't want to come back there all the time. So a lot of times it's getting a peer, maybe even some kind of group, even if it's not necessarily to the IEP meeting, but some sort of group where just the families of different types of students can get together, just collaborate together in a informal session, helps them kind of bridge that gap into being more comfortable in a school setting in general, or having the opportunity to speak freely and not feel like they're being put on the spot. Some sort of openness where you can kind of break that barrier down between school versus parent, and helping them feel like they really can speak openly and understand what's going on would be helpful.
Just to quickly add to that, also having events like extracurricular type events where they don't have to be talking about their child's deficits the whole time, and they can just come and like hang out and have ideas for what decorations to do for the party or whatever. That's team building too, right? So it's connecting in a different way, but we're working as a team to make an event happen. And so I found that to be really helpful as well.
And as you're saying that, Cassandra, I was thinking that in some ways, what Cara was talking about is building a circle of friends for the parents. And, a circle of friends who like it's safe with this group. And Derek was talking about the families could be part of what the kids were learning online. So we're building a circle of friends where it's easier to trust and relax and feel safe. Okay, I'm going to move on because we're getting close to time. Before I pass this back to Robin, I want to make sure you're aware of the collection of free resources that are available on my website. I've been collecting websites and videos and handouts and organizers for more than 10 years, and I'm updating them weekly. The center one is on my favorite family and community engagement resources. So I think you may find some things there that are valuable for you. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Robin.
Okay, thank you. So look for upcoming additional professional learning opportunities launching this fall that will be part of our Family Partnership Mastermind initiative, which will have a focus on special education. And we're looking to host some webinar supports that explore varied aspects of family engagement. This and other opportunities and information will be shared through our e-communication emails. So if you're not already subscribed, we've placed the link in the chat there. And with that said, please complete today's webinar evaluation. The link is also here in the chat. And the last question is of this very brief survey. It invites you to share your thoughts and ideas with us on what it is that you want more information on. What would be helpful to you in this work that we continue to build partnerships with families? Let us know. A very special thank you to each of our panelists, Stephanie, Ashley, Cara, Derek, and Casandra for graciously sharing your passion, experiences, and of course your time with all of us. And Amy in facilitating the panel and leading us through this two-part webinar series. Here's Amy's information here, inclusion-focused coaching and our website and email address. And again, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time.